Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 9 of Masochists Marathon, where today we are doing the final preparations for the attempt at lasers. I've decided on it the last couple of episodes, and yeah, I'm going for it. So one thing I wanted to do at the start of this episode was rebuild the sulfuric acid processing for a couple of reasons. First reason was I got the ratio completely wrong in the fact that I planted too many sulfur chemical plants, and plus I also wanted to try this beltless layout. Now, I think most people usually do 2-to-1 ratio, 2 chemical plants to 1, but I redid my maths, I double checked, and I still think it's 2.5 sulfur chemical plants to every sulfuric acid, although doing 2-to-1 works anyway. There's just a split second where there's not enough sulfur, but it really doesn't make much difference. But I'm a sucker for trying to get things absolutely right, so I kind of wanted to lay it out like this, and I kind of liked the look of it as well. It's something a bit different from what I usually do, so it makes me happy. So we go for it, even though we're not going to get anywhere near enough petroleum to get this thing to run at full speed. This is all completely overkill, but I wanted to do it anyway because it makes me happy. And plus I wanted a beltless layout. I never really did ever enjoy putting sulfur on a belt just because of how much of it goes through the machines, and generally I don't really use it for much else, although you do use it for explosives and maybe something else. Anyway, we call the oil train in just to get a bit of oil into the system, make sure this all runs okay, make sure we got some sulfuric acid coming out of it. So with only one oil derrick running, we're going to have a very, very slow throughput of oil, hence why I've not got very many refineries down, and why only one of the sulfur machines ever actually runs. So to alleviate that problem, I'm going to have to do a lot of biter killing to expose the oil patches, the really big oil patches southwest of the oil derrick. But that's something we'll do on a later date. I kind of want to get to the iron patch just to make sure we solidify that. Although I am still debating what would be more important at the moment, the iron patch or the oil patches, because we have quite a lot of iron still left at the outpost 1, so not quite sure there, but I probably am going to go for the iron because it's what I've been focusing on anyway. And then once we've got the iron, we could probably do the oil straight away, and then we can get on with blue science and spend a bit of time in the factory, because there is going to be a lot of biter slaying coming up. I will pre-warn you now. And so we have the layout for batteries. I only bother with one chemical plant for batteries because there's such a small amount of sulfuric acid coming through. I actually did a little bit of maths. I checked a few times, and on average we were getting around 950 crude oil coming in per train delivery at some point in the episode. I'm not sure if it's happened yet. We do change the train to leave the oil outpost every 90 seconds. I figured that's roughly a decent amount of time to bring the train in. I could leave it to be longer, but it just means when it comes in, the battery processing will go a little bit longer, but it'll be doing it less often. Either way, there's very little crude coming through, but I did observe it a little bit. Each train delivery rings in roughly 6 to 7 batteries worth of crude, without cracking in mind, of course. We need 12 batteries per laser turret, so we need to leave that for quite a while to get enough batteries to be able to do any laser pushing. So with all that running, I just leave the batteries to output into a wooden chest, and I start collecting all the iron I can find over the entire factory. Because one of the things we are going to need if we're firing this many lasers is a reliable power source. So we've already sorted the coal outpost. We have plenty of coal coming in, but that's not currently hooked up, so we need to look at sorting that out. So what I start doing is crafting 20 boilers and 40 engines and 1 pump. So that's a huge amount of iron that's going to use. We've nearly completely depleted the original starting iron resource, so I just lay a few more miners out just to get that done nice and quickly, but that doesn't take long to get rid of. So we're depending completely on the outpost, and I come and have a look at sorting the power out. Let's just quickly tidy up some miners on the copper just to make sure we've got enough going through, because we are teetering on the edge of not having enough. We also need to sort this base out down here, because if we're going to start generating more steam, then the pollution cloud's going to get bigger and it's going to start causing attacks down here. And currently I don't have any defense, so I decide to try and have a go with normal turrets. I thought I'd be alright doing it. We start encroaching on the base, and I try to kind of cheat a little bit using long reach, and then it seems to go well to start with. The turrets start losing ammo and have to replace them, and then a large biter turns up, and I literally can hardly scratch him at all. I think we got him down to a third health, but I pretty much ran out of turrets, and yeah, it didn't go very well. I probably should have used the piercing ammo I had on me, but yeah, I wasn't going to make a load of turrets and try again. To be honest, the pollution isn't actually reaching them yet, so it's not going to trigger any attacks yet, and it'd be a nice test of the lasers in a little bit. So I risked leaving it. I wasn't really going to mess around trying to deal with that large biter with the current state that my turret and bullet technology's in. So I ignore it and risk it, and we start clearing some trees to lay the steam column out how I want to do it. I've tested this layout on a sandpit map, and I'm pretty happy with it. I did as much rigorous testing as I could, demanding too much power, not enough, and I did find one problem. The one problem with this layout we're going with is if power goes above 100% utilization, there is an engine right up in the top corner. It's just the one that loses just under less than a quarter of its available performance, or just of its performance in general, because it's running at max speed. But I figured the factory should never be, demanding more power than it's able to produce, and that small amount is negligible. And to be honest, if the factory's not getting enough power, I should be fixing that anyway. So for the layout, I was happy to just ignore that basically, and all the other testing I did seemed to work fine. So I don't really see that being a problem. So we lay it out so that we can get quite a number of belts of coal through, because I want this layout to be quite neat. I bring the belt up here to begin with, but later on it's going to go straight across through the trees. I just couldn't be bothered to do any more tree clearing than I have to this episode, because the only downside to this layout, well, it's not really a downside, I see it as a plus, is it's very thin but very long. So we do have to do quite a bit of tree clearing to get it into place. So we finish the laser shooting damage, and we get on with the speed. They're the only two laser upgrades we have available without blue science. So while recording this past me was thinking a lot about the fact that we'd ran into that large biter, and I was unsure about how well the laser turrets would deal with the large biter. Obviously a lot better than the normal turrets, so if it does quite well I shouldn't be too worried, but the evolution factor is growing very quickly. We check at some point in the episode, I'll try and remember to look out for it, but the evolution factor is over 0.5 now, which is very worrying. It's going to get to 0.6 in no time at all. So yeah, we really need to get on with blue science quite soon, which is what is making me think I want to sway towards clearing for the oil patches before doing the iron. But then we could risk not having enough iron, but we don't need iron so much if we're doing lasers to expose the other patch. So yeah, I'm juggling between iron or oil. So if I go for oil, I can do blue science. Doing blue science with our current income of crude would be silly. We'll get nowhere near enough plastic to do any of the laser damage research. But then we run the risk of running out of iron from Iron Outpost 1. I had a look at the end of this episode. As of the end of the episode, we have around 500k iron left at that outpost. So the other option would be to clear the iron patch first, but then I run the risk of pushing the evolution scale too high for the laser turrets to deal with at their current level of tech. So I need to decide which I'm going to do. Is there enough iron in Outpost 1 for us to do the crude first, and then get some more laser turret upgrades, which would be good because they can deal with much stronger biters? Or do I go for iron first and hope that the evolution doesn't go too high, and then we're nice and comfortable with the amount of iron we have? Personally, I think going for crude now makes more sense to me now I've thought through it, because we can get the upgrades, and we can just hope that we have enough iron to do those upgrades. Plus, once we have a certain number of laser turrets, as long as they don't get destroyed, I don't need more iron to make more of them. All of the iron can go into the research. But I would really appreciate any comments on people that have been following this and know exactly the dilemma I'm stuck in. I'd be interested to hear some comments on just a bit of logic on what I should do, things I need to consider. I would really appreciate that. Anyway, while I've been ranting on about that, we have the first steam column set up of the 20 boilers and 40 engines, and I start laying out the second column. With a bit of testing, I think I can't remember the numbers exactly, but I think 2 of these columns almost maxes out a yellow belt. A third column would use over a yellow belt. So yeah, if I'm going to add any more columns than this, then I'll need to have a second belt of coal coming through, but we have the ability to bring in 4 or 3, considering the fact that coal is now on the bus, but the coal depot is also laid out in such a way that we can unload on both sides of the train and have up to 8 full belts coming in from there constantly, so long as the train is filling up fast enough at the outpost. I checked on the map. Aside for a very small patch, once that coal outpost is depleted, I will have to kill a fair amount of biters to expose the next coal patch, but not as much biters as I need to for the iron outpost, but it is a considerably large patch down to the resource settings we've gone for. We've gone for large but very poor richness, so we'll be setting up a lot of outposts this series, and they won't be lasting very long, but they shall be very large, so that shall be quite satisfying to do. So we have a bit of a problem hooking the power back up to the system. Takes me a minute to find where it's disconnected. I connected up to the train line first, which doesn't connect it up all the way. I then come and hook it up down here. Still doesn't make any difference, and I get a bit confused as to where it's actually supposed to hook up. But then I realised I missed a pole where I connected it to the train line. It was actually originally connected down where the boilers are. There's a line there running through the trees, but I want it to run up from the boilers there. I will get some proper power lines in when we're a bit more comfortable with resources, but I'm sticking with the basic poles for now because they're, yeah, a lot cheaper. The next thing we come and do now, we've doubled or more than doubled our power output. The original steam column was short by 2 engines and a boiler. So I come and lay in the input from the coal depot in a way that it only starts to feed the boilers from there once the miners depleted or aren't completely saturating a yellow belt. My speech today absolutely failing me, but we pick up enough batteries to make 10 laser turrets. What I didn't realize there was the shortage after making that 10 was actually steel. So I had some more batteries on me. I can't remember how many more turrets I can make once I pick up some steel, but I do eventually realize. I just come down and have a quick look at the oil outpost though, just to see it all running and just to see what rate of crude we're getting. We're getting 7 crude a second from that one derrick. It's a bit harsh though that they've landed me with 1 oil well in the starting area. I mean, it's great that the next oil patch is absolutely massive and it's only just on the edge of the Red Sea, so that's going to be a lot easier to clear than the iron. To be honest, the more I talk about it, I think the crude is the better option. But then sort of southwest of that huge patch, there's another moderately sized crude patch, so the station there is going to be pretty ridiculous. I don't know if I'll do 2 stations or 1. I'll decide when I actually come to do it. But yeah, I now realize I actually need some more steel and circuits for turrets, so we build another 6 laser turrets. So we're starting to build a fairly good amount. We shouldn't need too many depending on how they perform, and so long as I don't let them get blown up. So I'll need to make plenty of repair packs as well, just to repair them along the way. I just tidy up those 2 damaged turrets in my inventory as well. I'm going to collect some turrets in a little bit, just as a backup in case we have any power issues. I hope we don't, because the normal turrets turn out to be nowhere near as good as the lasers. I come and put in a standard 4 belt balancer in here because the original starting patch has been completely depleted. I also come and change how these input to the smelting areas. I watched this on Stejo's series and I quite liked it. The balancer just feeds directly into them. You don't really need to be splitting off because it's going to be harder to get a fully saturated belt. The only thing I don't like about it is the iron belts slowly move across over to the east, and when I've had, say, 10 smelting columns or something ridiculous, it's going to be right over, and I kind of like the way it occupies the same space. So that's my only concern with that layout is each belt for each smelting column moves over one, but the balancer makes sure they all get fed equally. So we come and tidy up the original iron outpost, and past me has another power pole dilemma. To begin with, I just whack in a long pole. We sort out the track that was the mining outpost was in the way of. I stick another long power pole in to connect it all so we can get rid of the basic ones, and then I get triggered and I have to clean the whole thing up really nicely, and I do end up messing around with it quite a bit, trying to keep it all straight. Once it's all straight, it's then using too many poles and I just can't really decide how to lay it out. So I go and fully tidy it up until I'm kind of happy. Still wasn't really happy about that, but at some point I'm going to go around and take out all the basic poles, probably after we've obtained Iron Outpost 2. So we come and have a test of the laser turrets by taking out this base we attempted to take out earlier with the normal turrets. And quite frankly, I was really happy with how they performed. They didn't struggle with the large biter at all. I do stick them in quite closely here, and they do take a little bit of damage, but nothing that I can't deal with the repair packs. And just like that, the biter base is cleared. So I was very happy with that. That has certainly relieved me somewhat with the idea of the evolution getting too strong. I also decided to come and put in some laser turrets next to the power, because there are some bases nearby, and I think after a long period of prolonged shooting, the pollution cloud here is going to get very strong with our pollution settings. So I come and stick in a load of laser turrets, making sure they cover the outer perimeter of the power area. Very strong defenses actually, because of course if this gets taken out, we're not going to be able to fire the laser turrets, and that's what we're going to be clearing with. I spot another base that's popped up while recording. There was a bunch of biters sat at that spot for ages, not doing anything. I thought it was bugged, and I kind of left them thinking if I cleared them, a base may then form, but they finally formed a base. We have a look at the evolution, which is at 0.53. It actually gets to 0.545 by the end of the episode. I don't actually check again in the recording, but I think I'm going to try and do that more regularly at the start of and end of every episode. I'm going to check the evolution so we can keep an eye on how it's growing. I've checked a couple of times. I just wish I'd done it every episode now, because of how ridiculously fast it's growing just from time and pollution. It's what, episode 9, and we're already on 0.5, which is halfway by my understanding. Anyway, while we were doing that, we completed the automobilism research, which has given us access to the car. To be honest, it was the only other important thing I could think of researching for the biter pushing. I'm going to leave research now so that the base shuts down and we have as much of the power for laser shooting as we can get. I top up on some normal turrets and ammunition just as a backup, just in case. But hopefully we won't have to use them at all, and we can stick entirely to laser turrets. So I come and stock up on various resources for building more turrets. I grab a few more batteries, which gives us the ability to make a couple more laser turrets. I was contemplating on ending the episode here, having a very short one, because I did want to try and get to the biter pushing this episode, but it turned out to be we didn't really have enough time to get it done. This episode I didn't quite have enough lasers to be comfortable. I take out the other sulfur machines because they did have some petroleum in them, and by taking them away it pushed it back into the pipe, and then all that petroleum pushed in back into that one pipe. And to be honest, we only really need one sulfur machine at the moment. But I decided to have a look at the ratios for sulfur and whatnot from crude. But yeah, I just thought, all right, we will make it a normal length episode, and we'll just spend the end of the episode here just trying to let enough batteries to be produced, because again, I really don't want to be doing stuff in between episodes. I don't even want to stand here and let a load of batteries produce in between recording. I want to get on with it next episode, but I need at least, say, 15 laser turrets, so we'll see how it goes when I come to start recording the next episode. We sit around here just long enough for enough batteries for one more laser turret. I then decide to re-evaluate my defenses around the steam, because I was thinking, hang on a minute, I had loads of laser turrets earlier, what have I done with them all? And I realised I probably put too many laser turrets in around the steam. That's kind of a bit overkill. So I come over here to sort that out, taking out a couple of coal miners as well. So what I decide to do is put in, to begin with, a normal turret. But they use the piercing ammo, because I think it uses piercing ammo over a normal one by default. I then go to walk off and immediately change my mind, keeping the piercing ammo on me for emergencies if I need it in the biter pushing. If suddenly I need to kill medium biter, I'm going to need the piercing ammo. I also put in a couple of turrets just to defend the coal in case they trigger attack and the biters go for that instead of the steam. But I'm guessing they're going to go for the steam primarily because they go towards the largest source of pollution, or at least they used to. I don't know if they've now changed that. I also come in and take out this line of basic poles because it was annoying me, because it wasn't doing anything, it had no purpose, and I was kind of a tiny bit triggered. Plus, I was just searching for things to do for the rest of the episode, because I want to get everything straight this episode so that next episode we can just go straight into the biter slaying. I also decide to come and remove this base as well. It was a tiny little bit too close for comfort. It also shows where that tiny little coal patch was that I was referring to earlier. It's just there in the top right hand corner of the screen. Tiny little patch that that I was considering using at the start of the game, but I never did. I also leave in a couple of normal turrets as well, just to make sure another base doesn't spawn there. The whole building totem thing doesn't work anymore. They stopped that, which I was kind of glad about. I always thought that was a bit of an abuse of game mechanics. But sticking in a bunch of turrets like that should stop my caravan from spawning a base right there. I mean, it can go and spawn one nearby, but hopefully not where those turrets are. So that brings us nicely up to 20 minutes. I never planned for episode 10 to be the biter slaying episode. It has completely happened by chance. But yes, next episode, we will be doing some biter slaying. No, I won't be calling it Bob's Angel of Death, and I probably won't come up with another name for it. It's just, yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of biter slaying in this series. This just happens to land on episode 10. So that's going to be all we have time for. I do hope you have enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and please do come and join me in the next episode. Bye-bye.